To create and execute a successful learning strategy, you need to solve for the people. And today I wanted to talk about why focusing solely on metrics of completion rates might be very misleading. They don't tell the whole story. Remember that the most important thing is how much and how well your people actually learned. Let me give you a quick example. If you meet a non-native English speaker, will you ask for their English level of certification? Or would you simply greet them and figure out their proficiency right away? The same holds true for any skill, even more so in the realm of technology. It's not about formal certification, it's about practical knowledge. So if you were to handle any tool or technology that you're training your team with right now, will they know how to use it? If you can answer that question for sure, you are lacking insights in terms of how well your training agenda actually is. And at best case scenario, you're just wasting tons of resources on useless training programs. But let's face it, this is probably also happening. You are missing out on opportunities, therefore hindering business value and competitiveness. Throughout my career, I have trained over 700 people. My deep passion for what I do has helped me to develop this successful training strategy that I am going to share with you. Rather than focusing on specific targets, I just had a few that I needed to report. I focused on people and I sold for them. I understood what was on people's minds: busy agendas, deadlines, urgent matters. All of that was very true as it was the fact that not upskilling or reskilling them was going to hinder business value. It is a common challenge in and balancing between busy schedules and upskilling is the key to a successful training strategy. Throughout my time in Unilever, I was in charge of the digital training programs for the finance department, the most hardworking people I have ever met. They oversee a vast business operation, and they're really good at this. And because their primary focus is on overseeing business operations, they have very packed agendas and they have a lot of deadlines to meet. In this scenario, my main challenge was how to create a training agenda with high levels of engagement. Here's how I did it. First thing you need to consider is that it is not about the information. Information is all over the internet, so if you have the time, the energy, and the willingness to learn a new skill from scratch, you can 100% do it with all the resources that you have on the internet. So remember, it's not about information. That's why asynchronous pathways on learning platforms should not be considered a training strategy as a standalone. Yes, they can and probably are part of the solution, but they are not the strategy as a whole. Guiding participants through their learning journey is key. Let me just give you a quick example from my experience training the finance department at Unilever. Have you ever wondered what happens at the beginning and at the end of any month for the finance team? They go crazy with the end month closure process. I'm not quite sure what happens in there. I've heard the rumors and they are terrible. So I simply never schedule a class for the first and the last week of the month. I understood that if I wanted to solve for the people of finance, they were only available to engage on the second and third week of the month. Why would you plan a training session when you know that your audience lacks the time and the energy to engage? And to notice these details, you have to be paying attention at what is going on people's mind. So remember, it's not about information, it's about guiding people through the journey of learning. Second thing that I want you to consider is speak their language. You're about to dive into teaching technical concepts. So at first, it will sound like nonsense for participants. Databases, relational databases, what is this formula even trying to do? With that in mind, it's important to explain complex terms into a language that resonates with them. Circling back to the finance example, the people in finance are really good at understanding P&Ls and forecasting and budgeting, so I articulated any complex topic into that language. This helps the audience to stay engaged and connect the dots, and this also helps them spot the opportunity that the technology offers to them while you're speaking. And it's truly amazing just how much of a game changer this is. Here's an extra insight from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. The only way of having someone do something is convincing them of actually wanting to do that. So in the realm of upskilling and training, you cannot force someone to learn a skill that they don't want to. At best, you could potentially enforce a particular behavior for a specific task. But if they don't want to learn, the information will simply not stick with them. And this also means that your training agenda is not really good. It is in your best interest to have people actually want to learn. Because someone who is engaged will go out of their way and will search on Google topics that they are not familiar with, will go on YouTube to watch tutorials, will go above and beyond what your training agenda can offer to them. And remember, information is all over the internet. Third point that you need to consider is practice is crucial. Drawing from my experience as an industrial engineer, you can trust me on this. In theory and practice are the same. In practice, they are not. This resonates very well in the realm of technology. Curated databases are really good for starting to explore a new tool or technology, but just because you know how to do this with very curated databases doesn't mean that you know how to use a tool. In reality, data can be chaotic. Business have its own very complex logic. There might be a lot of exceptions for each business logic, and the truth is, if that people don't know how to solve for those real life scenarios, then they don't know how to use the tool. So when you are designing exercise for participants, going past that first ideal example with very curated databases, you need to include in your exercise true business complexity. A pro tip for this is that you can use a business case that is operational now in your business, and you can start from that to build an exercise with less volume of data and a little bit less of complexity, and you use that as an exercise. And here's another thing. You are going to build a step-by-step to how to resolve that exercise, and that will be the first cheat sheets that your participants will have when using that technology. This really showcases the excellence of your training program. The fourth thing is, you can assume that someone knows how to use a tool or a technology until they apply it on a real case scenario. So somewhere in your training agenda, participants had to be given the task of looking for a process within their teams or their departments where they can spot a process that can be solved with what they have learned, and they need to apply it and solve it. It's even more effective if they do this working in teams and mixing different tools, because this is very representative of real use cases. And this is when you can tell for sure that your learning strategy worked. This is when you know for sure that they know how to use the tool and the technology. Because at this moment, they might not know everything about the tool, but they also will know how to look for the things that they don't know, and this is a victory in itself. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on is that it's key to establish a culture of ongoing learning. In the digital world, there is always something that you don't know, and there is someone out there who has that information. Also, when people start applying what they have just learned, they will encounter unforeseen errors, obstacles, challenges. So you need to plan ahead for this. What is the expectation that they do when this happens? By doing this, you can prevent a 5-minute query to escalate into a major project stopper or delay. There's a lot more to say about this, but creating a culture of ongoing learning is key. You need to establish a culture where learning, upskilling, and transferring knowledge is part of what people do on a daily basis. I will stop here. I hope this was useful. I hope this has inspired you into taking action. I am Dani Mellin. You can find more useful tips on my LinkedIn account, in the upcoming group Container Magic Learning. And if you need help crafting a learning strategy, let's have a chat.